Your Excellency, President Ilham Əliyevin, distinguished participants of international conference. It is already the third time that ADA University and Center for Analysis of International Relations are jointly organizing an international conference in which President Ilham Əliyev honors us with his participation. This conference has become an important platform for the discussion of regional developments with a special focus on post-war peace-building process and reconstruction. Messages from this room become valuable agenda points for global analysts and researchers, as well as for publications in world-renowned journals. We thank President Əliyev for his valuable time, which he spent with us today. This time, we have decided to focus on the issue of Middle Corridor, which is a highly relevant and timely topic of today's regional focus. Azerbaijan's geostrategic location has always attracted attention from the times of the ancient Silk Road to modern times when national leader Heydar Əliyev has masterfully crafted the new energy map of the greater Eurasia and successfully built energy corridors. It was not easy at all. At the crossroads, both commercially and politically, for all major issues facing the region, Azerbaijan has always resisted efforts by those who wish to dominate it, regardless of where the efforts come from. I want to bring to your attention that back in 2010, ADA University, together with Central Asia Caucasus Institute at Johns Hopkins University, has published a research study on how to make Azerbaijan and the Caspian region a transit hub of the continent. President Ilham Əliyev's long-term vision and tireless efforts to create a better synergy between Europe and Asia via Azerbaijan and the Caspian region have significantly contributed to this cause. Azerbaijan's 44 days patriotic war and the liberation of the occupied lands have opened new opportunities for the regional transport corridors, including Zangezur Corridor and several other initiatives in this regard. We strongly believe that this discussion today and tomorrow will further enhance the regional transport and connectivity agenda and bring more sustainable peace to the region. Please allow me to thank all international experts for their participation in these discussions. And now, with great appreciation to President Əliyev for his valuable time, I turn the floor to His Excellency. Please, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to express gratitude to our guests, international experts, for being with us and to address these important issues. Of course, special gratitude to ADA University for hosting this important event. As Mr. Pashayev already said, it's for the third time in our recent history we gather here, and I think the discussions which we had previously and this time will contribute to better understanding about regional realities, plans of Azerbaijan, and also our interaction with the neighborhood. Today's topic covers a particular issue of Middle Corridor, but of course, when I see how it is called, geopolitics, security, and economy, of course, the coverage will be much broader. And this is natural because in order to implement such a large-scale project as Middle Corridor, issues of security and economic capability, of course, must be addressed. Because without security and economic potential, it will not be possible to achieve the goal of full commissioning of the Middle Corridor, which will be beneficial to all the countries in the region. And of course, one of the important elements for implementation of any large-scale project is stability. Azerbaijan is a country which enjoys stability for many, many years, and this was one of the main factors of our economic development. And the role which Azerbaijan plays now on the international arena also was generated by our internal politics, because strong economy, political economic stability, and predictability of the policy of our government, all these factors, along with building bridges and establishing closer relations with as many countries as possible, led to today's reality. Therefore, political stability, security, economy, all these factors, they are very important. And along with that, of course, what every country which is part of the Middle Corridor have done internally, in other words, what was the level of accomplishment of their homework in order to build physical transportation and logistics infrastructure. Azerbaijan's geography is very well known. We are a landlocked country. We don't have a direct access to world oceans. Therefore, whether it's our energy projects or transportation projects, we needed to work very hard in order to achieve our target. At the same time, advantage of our geographical location is just we are situated between Europe and Asia, actually in the middle between the two continents, and this allows us to play an important role in connectivity issues. But of course, physical availability of infrastructure was most important, and we invested in that sector for many, many years. And now when we look at our railroad connections and highway infrastructure, we see that everything in Azerbaijan is ready. 5 years ago, we inaugurated, together with our partners, Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad project. And now when we see the growing volume of cargo crossing our country, we started to invest in the expansion of the Georgian segment of Baku-Tbilisi-Kars. And this project will cost us more than $100 million, and we plan to accomplish it within maybe a year and maybe a year and a half. And at the same time, other transportation projects like North-South corridor will add synergy to East-West corridor. So Azerbaijan actually is a participant of both corridors, and most of the transportation and logistics infrastructure with respect to these corridors in Azerbaijan is ready. What we are doing now, we are just modernizing. We are building a new railway lines in order to increase the speed of the trains and cargo trains. At the same time, we are investing in transportation infrastructure, particularly air cargo transportation infrastructure. Our trade seaport, which is a relatively new element of transportation connectivity projects, is going to be expanded from today's 15 million tons up to 25 million tons because of the necessity, because of new geopolitical situation in the world and necessity to transport more cargo through Azerbaijan. And also we are in a process of completion of our airports projects, and after Lachin airport is ready, which will be the third airport on the liberated territories, the number of international airports in Azerbaijan will be equal to 9. And of course, this is not only for passenger transportation, but also cargo transportation. So we expect rapid growth of cargo transportation through Azerbaijan, and we are ready for that. If we add our potential with respect to the shipping infrastructure and availability of the brand new shipyard in Baku, we'll see that we will definitely achieve what we plan. And in order to transport additional cargoes from eastern shores of the Caspian through Azerbaijan, of course, we'll need to have new tankers and ferry boats and cargo boats. So probably now I will conclude this introduction to leave more time for our discussions. Once again, welcome. And I know that you will be visiting one of the liberated cities, Agdam, and also grateful for that. So you will see with your own eyes the results of 30 years Armenian occupation. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. President. Matt Breiser from the United States. In terms of the East-West corridor, middle corridor, and specifically on energy, how are things going in terms of Turkmenistan, its gas getting incorporated maybe via Iran through swaps, and also across Turkey, where there's some intense discussions about private companies maybe getting involved in the gas transit across Turkey? Thank you.
Yes, we are, of course, addressing this issue, looking at the very broad prospects of cooperation. And I think these transportation routes, which already are functioning, will allow all the countries of the Caspian region to be more integrated. Our cooperation with Turkmenistan has a very good history, and today we provide important transit for cargoes from Turkmenistan, and even in our trade seaport in Alat, we've allocated a special place for particular cargoes from Turkmenistan. We started swap operations with respect to Turkmen gas, and the reason is that we are now facing a growth in our industry and the big need for additional volumes of gas. Industry is growing, population is growing. We are now in the process of active reconstruction of Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur. Therefore, the demand for natural gas definitely will grow. What is necessary to be done? Of course, we'll continue our cooperation with foreign oil companies, which plan to increase the gas production from existing fields and also the new fields, which will be operational starting from next year, particularly a huge gas condensate Absheron field will start production next year, and the first phase of production will be 1.5 billion cubic meters. And of course, there's a potential to increase several times the production. And at the same time, we need to expand the existing pipeline system, which also is brand new. We just completed less than 2 years ago the final segment of Southern Gas Corridor Trans-Adriatic pipeline, but already today we see the demand to expand the capacity twice, from 10 to 20 BCM. That will need, of course, a consolidated position and investments of all shareholders. Azerbaijan has only 20% share in TAP. Therefore, we hope that with partners we will get to that point. And also expansion of TANAP from 16 to 32 billion cubic meters, because capacity of TANAP is almost fully engaged. So all that will need, of course, additional investments. And of course, for that we will need to have arrangements of transit with our Turkish colleagues. Without that, it will not be possible to satisfy the needs of European consumers and also growing needs of Turkish consumers. There is opportunity now, without losing time, to engage Trans-Balkan pipeline, especially after interconnector between Greece and Bulgaria was inaugurated last month. And we are ready. The capacity of that pipeline is 3 BCM. So we are ready to supply necessary volumes maybe within 1 month. But for that, we need a transit arrangement with Turkey. Unfortunately, we did not get to that point yet. Negotiations continue. They last more time than we anticipated, but hopefully we will come to that agreement, because if it is not reached due to some reasons, then all our plans to supply additional gas to Turkey and to Europe will be under threat. You know that this July we signed MOU with European Commission to increase twice the supply, and there is a potential because first, as I said, new gas fields which we plan to commission in the coming years. I mentioned Absheron, I can mention Umid Babek, I can mention Asiman, Shafak, and many others. Second, serious reforms in our energy company SOCAR, new management, corporate management, transparency, and efficiency will save us additional volumes of gas. And also our projects, which already started with international investors with respect to renewables. Two projects are already in the pipeline, and 470 megawatt of wind and solar energy will be available probably by the end of next year, plus 230 solar megawatt plant in Jabrail will add to that. So that will save us additional gas. In other words, we will be able to implement fully MOU with European Commission, which we signed in July, but for that we need to finalize our arrangements with our Turkish friends, and I hope that it will be the case sooner than later.
Mr. President, my name is Khalid Taimur Akram, and I am from Pakistan. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us, and I'm here for the third time. And in the last 1.5 years, we have seen very intense diplomatic efforts by yourself incorporating Central Asia, incorporating Pakistan and other Asian countries. You were there in Samarkand also, and in fact, you attended almost every regional platform in the last 1.5 years. Before I move on to my question, first of all, I would like to thank you for exempting Pakistani rice for any kind of taxes for next 5 years. So we are very grateful for that, and this gesture has been taken in a very, very positive way for bringing up the trade between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. I would now like to ask you that how do you think, you have been going around in all the Central Asia and other Asian countries, in your opinion, do you think that in times to come, the dream of connecting South Asia, Central Asia with Azerbaijan is going to accomplish? Do you think that Iran and Armenia, will they be creating any kind of problems in times to come, or will they be going along with whatever the regional countries are doing? Because all these countries are making lots of efforts, and we have practically seen you going around everywhere talking to the world leaders and especially the regional country leaders. So your comments on that.
I met twice Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Shahbaz Sharif, during the last couple of months, and we discussed broadly the agenda of our bilateral relations, and this is an agenda of friendship and brotherhood. And we are very grateful to Pakistan for continuous support, which the country demonstrates with respect to Azerbaijan-Armenian relations during the times of occupation and after liberation of our territory, and during the war, Pakistan always was with us. And this political and moral support is highly appreciated by the people of Azerbaijan. We discussed also with Prime Minister how to intensify the economic and trade cooperation, and the decision which you referred to, the special regulations for rice from Pakistan, is a reflection of that. because we decided to make this step in order to stimulate the growth of mutual trade. And as we discussed with Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, we need to see what kind of goods we can provide to each other, and why should we buy rice from some other place if we have high quality rice in the Brazilian country. So that decision was clearly based on our Brazilian relations. With respect to my contacts with leaders of the region, yes, these contacts have a very great level of dynamism, especially now after pandemic, when international travels again become part of our life. I spent a lot of time in Central Asian countries. I visited Uzbekistan 3 times since this April, on official visit and on international events. I visited Kyrgyzstan on a state visit. President of Kazakhstan was on official visit this August. And also, before that, I visited Turkmenistan, and I'm planning to visit Tajikistan next year. I have an invitation from President. And also on the sidelines of international events, we always use time to talk, because a lot of things are happening, and we must be ready for that. And speaking at the summit of Turkish States Organization, I addressed the issue of security, because now security becomes maybe more important than ever before. And countries which have a traditional ties must address this issue on the bilateral track and also multilateral, and to see how can we support each other. Because the world has changed, international law is not working or working selectively. Therefore, if you have a power, if you have a strong army, if you have good allies, then you can feel yourself on the safe side. Therefore, I think the connectivity projects which we are implementing will lead to more regional security and stability, and there is a great chance to accomplish them. Again, as far as we are concerned, in Azerbaijan, all the transportation projects, whether it's east-west or north-south, railroad or highway, airports or fleet or seaport, everything is ready. So the same level of readiness must be in all the countries en route of the corridor. Is it the case? No. But we see the positive dynamics. For instance, at one of the international events which I participated relatively recently, there was an agreement signed of construction of railroad between China, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. This project was on hold for many years. But now everybody understands that there is a need to bring cargoes towards Caspian, to engage Trans-Caspian opportunities to a large degree. Therefore, this project, which is, as far as I know, is financed by China, has a great chance to contribute largely to transportation. We have excellent relations with Pakistan, and I know that the Gwadar port of Pakistan is transforming into a big international hub. And to connect Gwadar port with our infrastructure is not a difficult thing. We need just to properly address the issue of tariffs, legal framework, coordination on regulation, and to have a teamwork. For instance, we have started the trilateral format of active cooperation between Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Kazakhstan. The first meeting of foreign ministers and transportation ministers took place several months ago. Now it's the second meeting, and our neighbor Georgia is invited. It will be a meeting of 4 countries, because we are all interconnected, and we need to have a single policy. Because if any country will try to achieve more than it can, then it will not work. What else we've done here? We've accumulated the synergy of our transportation entities, because previously there was a kind of a more corporate policy of these companies. I mean, Azerbaijan Railroad, Seaport, Caspian Shipping, and some others. So now we have full coordination, and the Ministry of Transportation and Digital Transformation is coordinating this process. Therefore, there will be a single window in Azerbaijan, which will make very easy for companies who want to use this route in order to have minimum bureaucracy. And of course, efficiency of our transportation companies. In all the transportation companies, we already introduced the corporate management criteria, so it is already bringing results. You asked about whether Iran and Armenia will be able to disrupt this process. I don't think so. First, Armenia doesn't have neither geographical nor any other capability or advantages in the region. It actually is a deadlocked country. No transportation route crosses Armenia. Their transportation network is outdated and do not belong to them. Their railroads belong to Российские железные дороги, RZD, Russian Railroad Company. And actually our discussions on Zangezur corridor we have with Russia, not with Armenia. Because Armenia is a satellite country, it's a dependent country. Its independence is very symbolic, and we are not going to waste time negotiating with them. We are negotiating with Russia. And by the way, during my recent communications with Russian officials, we discussed the Zangezur corridor, and I don't think that Armenia will be able to block this project. As far as Iran is concerned, I also don't think that that will be the case, because Iran itself should be interested in regional connectivity projects, because these projects, they are not against anyone, they are for the benefit. So again, if we manage to establish a platform of sincere cooperation and shared benefit approach with all the players, it will work. If not, then it probably will work partially. So it will depend, of course, on our interaction with our partners. But again, Azerbaijan as a geographical center of this project, and as a country which already, as I said, has full infrastructure in place, and country which has good relations with different international actors, understands its responsibility and will do everything in order to move the project forward.
Mr. President, Yes. Yeah. Mr. President, thank you very much. Sajjad Karim, former member of the European Parliament and chairman of European Parliament's Delegation for Relations with Azerbaijan. May I firstly thank you, of course, for your time yet again. This dialogue is extremely useful, to say the least, for those of us that are engaged on relations with Azerbaijan. And may I just start off firstly by congratulating you on your decision to establish an embassy in Tel Aviv. As a British Conservative, I find myself in a position to very much welcome that and as a country support that decision that you have taken. Mr. President, your developments following liberation of the territories are proceeding exactly as you stated they would do in terms of a vision, not just for Azerbaijan, but for the entirety of the South Caucasus. What I'm interested in exploring a little more is digital connectivity and how that fits into your overall plan, not just for Azerbaijan, the liberated territories, but for the South Caucasus. We are seeing at a global level basically three different versions emerging when it comes to data protections. A US model, a European model, and then a Chinese model. Where do you see Azerbaijan fitting in terms of data protections? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The decision which was made to open the embassy in Israel and also representative office in Palestine is a decision made based on our national interests, and it reflects long-lasting cooperation with Israel and Palestine. And I'm sure that this decision will serve the cause of peace, and actually it is a formalization of long-lasting, very friendly cooperation. And thank you for your support to that decision, because as we clearly understand, not every country in the region is happy about that. But our task is not to make happy those who have some prejudice. Our task is to make happy our people and to do what is right for Azerbaijan, and we are doing that. With respect to issue related to digital connectivity, yes, we understand the trends of the modern world. And by the way, when we decided to change the name of our former Minister of Technologies and Transportation to Transportation and Digital Transformation, that was a reflection of the reality. Because now this is one of the most important elements of development and of security. Which model we will choose probably is difficult to say. For me, I think the experts and specialists will give me the advices about that. But because I'm not a specialist in this area, but we will make a choice based again on the best practice, on best technology and best protection. Because we need to take care of cybersecurity, because we see that the more and more countries become very, very vulnerable with respect to cyber attacks, even the countries which much more sophisticated technologies than we are. Therefore, of course, we will seriously address this issue. But coming to your comments about liberated territories, I'd like to say that we are applying in the liberated territories the latest technologies. And when I was saying 2 years ago, right after the war, that we will rebuild Karabakh and we will demonstrate the good example of reconstruction, I meant exactly that. And now it happens. We are building and reconstructing our cities and villages based on smart technology platform. And the first village in Agali is already inhabited. And everyone who visits can see what will be the model for reconstruction of Karabakh. Because not only it should be the kind of reflection of our moral duty in front of the former refugees who suffered for 30 years from Armenian occupation, and they deserve to live a decent life and fully protected. But also, we consider reconstruction of Karabakh and Zengezur as a model for the whole country. We will then, or maybe already now, steadily transfer technological experience and also administrative management. Because in the liberated areas, we have a different administrative structure rather than in other parts of the country. The Institute of President's Special Representatives is already installed in 3 areas, and it proves to be very efficient. So we are testing the model not only of technological development and how then to transfer, but we're also testing the model of management. Therefore, of course, we'll be very, very attentive and, committed to digital transformation, and we'll make the best choice which is suitable for our people.
Ahmed Tahir, Egypt, Al-Hawar Center for Political Studies.
Thank you very much to attend this meeting. Your Excellency, you participated in the recent Arab Summit in Algeria, and your speech, we're happy to listen to it. And you emphasized the depths of the relation between the Azerbaijan and the Arab countries. My question is, how do you see the future between the Azerbaijan and Arab countries in particular, and the Azerbaijan and the Egypt in general? Thank you.
It was a big honor for me to be invited to attend the summit of Arab League, and I consider it as a sign of friendship and a sign of respect. Earlier this year, I hosted the Secretary General of Arab League, Mr. Abul Gate, and we discussed our future cooperation. Also, we are now in the process of discussion and also probably realization of the idea to establish the office of Arab League in Baku, and we are ready to undertake all the necessary arrangements and to support this process, because this will reflect the substance of our cooperation. We are grateful to member states of Arab League for continuous support to Azerbaijan within the framework of non-aligned movement and Islamic Cooperation Organization. During the times of occupation, several resolutions have been adopted in our support and accusing Armenia's occupational policy, and after the liberation also. Therefore, we consider it as a very obvious sign of support. We also actively work on strengthening the solidarity between the member states of Islamic Cooperation Organization. We held several international events here. During the times of pandemic, we provided financial and humanitarian assistance to more than 80 countries, including countries of Arab League and Islamic Cooperation Organization. We know that there is a big potential, but we need to identify the main areas of economic cooperation, because as far as political interaction is concerned, everything is clear, we are friends, and my participation at the summit once again reflects that. But in trade and economic area, our performance, of course, cannot be satisfactory. And coming to our relations with Egypt, these relations also have a good history since the early years of Azerbaijan's independence. We are actively communicating in different areas, and political, economic, trade, tourism. I visited Egypt on official visit, and the President of Egypt also visited Azerbaijan on official visit many years ago. So we also had this format of cooperation, and I think that this potential of this cooperation is really very, very big. Thank you.
John
Can
Roberts.
I ask a question which is a follow-up to Matt Bryce's question? John Roberts with Methinks from Scotland. How far advanced are your talks with BP on developing the deep-level ACG field and expanding production at Shah Deniz? And if I can be very cheeky, perhaps, and ask you, what keeps you awake at night?
Well, at night I sleep well, I don't wake up. No, this is true, this is true. There is no reason for me to wake up at night, especially now, in this peaceful environment when Azerbaijan lives for more than 2 years already without the burden of occupation, without the risk of escalation, because you probably heard that even during the times of occupation, Armenian high-ranking officials were threatening us that they are planning a new war for new territories. That was a quote of the former Armenian defense minister, who is now imprisoned by Mr. Pashinyan. But that was an open threat to Azerbaijan. There were other very arrogant comments like, if the war starts, Armenian tanks will be on the streets of Baku. But actually this arrogant comment became a reality. Armenian tanks are on the streets of Baku, but they've been on the military parade and now they're in the military trophy park. So after these glorious victories, there's no reason not to use night for sleep. So with respect to our plans with BP, of course, we are continuing our cooperation. BP is a strategic investor in Azerbaijan and is, as you know, operator of ACG and Shahdanis and have plans to expand its activity. And the projects like deep gas from ACG is now needed more than ever before. I know that negotiations between BP and SOCAR on these particular projects are moving very successfully. There have been certain delay in previous times due to some miscommunication of SOCAR management with Azerbaijani governmental officials, but now everything is clear, so gas is needed for the market, and it's time to engage this huge potential, because deep gas from ACG really is a big separate gas field. Also, you know about the energy transition of energy companies, so BP is also leading the process, and their decision to invest in a solar plant in Jabrayil, in liberated Jabrayil, is highly appreciated. So it's not only a sign that they are leading the process of international companies in Azerbaijan with respect to renewables, but selection of liberated territory for us has a special meaning. Therefore, we are very grateful. 230 megawatt solar plant will be the first renewable facility on the liberated territories. We already have a preliminary accurate analysis of the potential of Karabakh and Eastern Zengezur. So solar and wind potential is minimum 9.2 thousand megawatt, 9,200 megawatt, and hydro potential is minimum 600 megawatt. And by the way, more than 30 small and medium hydropower stations are to be built on the liberated territories, 5 of them already commissioned. So really this is a big potential. As I said previously, more energy we produce from the renewables, more gas we will save for market, international market. So it's a win-win situation. So I'm sure that other major energy companies will concentrate not only on the Caspian Sea potential, because we found out that the Caspian Sea has the second potential after the North Sea with respect to the wind energy, but energy companies will also turn their eye, like BP did, to Kelbecer, to Lachin, where we have a huge wind potential, and to Jabrayil, where it's probably the most sunny part of our country.
Ahmet Uysal, Turkey Center for Middle Eastern Studies.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I see, I note, I mean, it's very obvious that Azerbaijan shows a good diplomatic activism recently on the energy, on security, especially with the Organization of Turkic States also. And how you see the activism toward, I mean, Azerbaijan's relations toward Africa and the Third World, maybe East Asia also. Thank you. Also, any hints about Azerbaijan-Turkey relations also, maybe the future we have to consolidate and maybe build on it more. Thanks.
If I start to talk about Azerbaijan-Turkish relations, we'll need several days to spend here.
No, the vision, sir. Thank you.
Vision is absolutely clear. We are brothers and friends. We are allies. And last year in Shusha, we formalized actually what has been already achieved. We became officially allies, signing the alliance declaration. And once again, it was just a formalization of the reality, because for many years, Azerbaijan and Turkey act like allies. And we highly value this level of cooperation and partnership and brotherhood. And we are absolutely sure that our cooperation will only strengthen and in all the areas. And this is a very important factor of regional stability because Turkish-Azerbaijani cooperation and actions in the region aim to strengthen regional stability, and this factor must be taken into account by all. Because we, two countries, we combine our potential, and together we are stronger than when we're separate, and this is clear. And potential of Turkey is growing, and potential of Azerbaijan is growing. And not only economic, industrial, but military. And today's world demonstrates that this is the factor number one for every country. If you don't have strong military forces, you will probably suffer bitter days. So investments in defense infrastructure, joint initiatives, joint military trainings. We regularly, with Turkey, have more than 10 joint military trainings during 1 year in Turkey, in Azerbaijan. So this is an important factor of regional stability and our security. And all those who have bad plans against Azerbaijan or Turkey should know that Turkish army is not only Turkish army, but it is our army, and our army is not only our army, but it is Turkish army. And all those who plan provocations on our border, trying to frighten us, should never forget it. With respect to the countries of Africa, we are now more actively working with countries of African continent. A decision to open the embassy in Israel and representative office in Palestine also was accompanied by decision to open embassy in Albania and in Kenya, in African country. We have an ambassador in African Union, who is at the same time ambassador to Ethiopia, and our interaction, of course, is much more dynamic since we've undertaken the chairmanship of non-aligned movement back in 2019. And at the summit, which was held in Azerbaijan, I said that we will be defending the national interests, justice, national interests of member states, justice and international law. And the unanimous decision by 120 countries to extend our chairmanship until 2023 is a reflection of support and respect countries, including African countries, show to us. During the times of the pandemic, as I said, we provided assistance to more than 80 countries, most of them countries of African continent. We, at the same time, provided a donation of $10 million to World Health Organization, and apart from donations to African countries. So I think that they also understand that Azerbaijan is their friend, and the fact that we are supported in non-aligned movement, and we, by the way, plan to organize another summit in Azerbaijan in spring next year, demonstrates that there's a big potential for that.
To keep the gender balance, our next question to Amanda Paul, European Policy Center, Belgium.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President. I would like to ask you to elaborate a bit on your relationship with the European Union. I mean, what are the priority areas? How do you see the role of the EU in the mediation process with Armenia, particularly Shah-Michel? And maybe a second question also related to the EU. You were at the recent Prague summit launching the European Political Community. What is your perception of this new initiative? Because it still seems to be unclear to many people. And last but not least, how do you see the future of the Eastern Partnership? Is there life left in it, or is it dead?
Many important questions. I try to address all of them. First, our relations with EU. This is one of the priorities of our foreign policy, and many times I publicly spoke about that. And we consider EU as our very important partner. We are now in the final stage of consultations with respect to new agreement, which is ready almost more than 90%. Several unresolved issues still remain, but I think demonstrating mutual goodwill, we can achieve that and to sign a very important document with EU. You know that Azerbaijan didn't join the association format. We didn't sign association agreement, and some other countries of the Eastern Partnership. So we made a preference towards bilateral. With respect to Eastern Partnership, from the very beginning of this initiative, we supported it. But our position was very clear that we consider it as one of the elements of our cooperation with EU, but not as a platform for cooperation with other member states. Because 6 member states of Eastern Partnership, they have different geopolitical priorities, different geography, different, situation. And 2 of them, Azerbaijan and Armenia, were at war. With respect to the future of Eastern Partnership, I'm not very optimistic, frankly speaking. I received recently the big group of European representatives which traveled to here and to Armenia and discussed our future ideas. So I think every initiative is good for its time. Eastern Partnership started in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. It's almost 15 years. It is not for granted that it should continue like that, because especially now, if you look at these 6 countries of the Eastern Partnership, you'll see even more differences between them than ever before. European Political Community platform is new, and we've been invited, and I actively participated. I was satisfied with how it was organized. I think it was organized in a very professional way. There was an opportunity to have a very sincere discussions off the record and to address important issues. So as a platform, I think it was successful. With respect to its future, my impression from Prague meeting was that even the initiators of this platform do not know what will be the future. I think it's in the process, and probably it is natural, because you cannot expect that everything is already pre-organized and you have these directives, what will be the next. The good thing is that the decision was made to hold these summits every 6 months. So this, I think, is a good sign, because if it was yearly, then you know, you come, you meet, and you forget, you go home, and everything is got stuck. So every 6 months will allow to have more dynamism. The next meeting is planned to be held in Moldova, which I also consider as a very wise decision to have this meeting not in EU member state. So we will see. Anyway, we are glad that we've been invited, And if we invited to the next summit, of course, we will participate. With respect to the mediation of European Union and personally Mr. Charles Michel, we supported it from the very beginning because we thought that after the, I would say, funeral of the Minsk group, there must be some platform because we need to have some institution to help with to us and Armenia to come to certain agreements. An initiative of President Michel was a timely initiative. And you know, we had several rounds of meetings in Brussels, and I think that all of them were successful because we adopted press release after the meeting, and it actually helped us to formulate the formula for settlement. Because after the Second Karabakh War, there have been certain illusions in Armenia that they will continue to talk to us about Karabakh. And we said from the very beginning, this is absolutely out of question. We are not going to talk about Karabakh with any country or international institution. Karabakh conflict is resolved. It is our territory, recognized by all, and it's our internal matter. So we needed to formalize that, and it happened. If we come back to Prague meeting and look at the communique of the meeting, you'll see that for the first time, Armenia recognized officially territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan, which means sovereignty over Karabakh. Also in the Prague press release, there was a reference to Almaty Declaration of 1991, which actually formalized the administrative borders of former Soviet republics. That means that any speculation about kind of status or whatsoever for Karabakh Armenians is out of question. So coming back to EU format, it was important because we managed also due these interactions in Brussels to agree that we separate two tracks. One, Armenia-Azerbaijan negotiations on peace treaty. Another track, our communications with representatives of Armenian minority in Karabakh with respect to addressing only two issues, rights and security. And that was agreed. And so that's what I'm trying to say, that it was a resultative event, resultative. The meeting in Prague had a little bit different format because President France Macron joined our group. And well, I would just end the comments here. But again, the result of the Prague meeting was successful because for us, as again, Armenia recognized sovereignty and territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. I can tell you one more thing which has not yet been disclosed, but probably will be, that the next meeting in Brussels was supposed to be held on the 7th of December, because at the last meeting we agreed to meet in November, but then we had a meeting in Sochi organized by President Putin on the end of October. So 7th of December, but yesterday I got information from Hikmet that he was communicated from the office of President Charles Michel that Prime Minister Pashinyan agrees to the meeting on one condition, that President Macron also should participate. So, but of course, that means that this meeting will not take place because of what happened after Prague. Prague was 6th of October, and then less in 1 week after, President Macron in his interview attacked Azerbaijan and accused us in what we have not done. And after that, this famous French Senate resolution which was absolutely unacceptable and insulting. Now there will be another resolution of National Assembly of France of the same anti-Azerbaijani origin. And then was an attempt of France to attack us through Francophonia Summit, which is absolutely unacceptable because Francophonia is a humanitarian organization and it never dealt with issues like that. And we have the initial text, draft text of France and Armenian tandem, full of insinuations, accusations, and insults. But we have friends not only in non-aligned movement, part of them, by the way, are members of Francophonia, but also in Europe. So this anti-Azerbaijani resolution was actually cancelled. So they adopted something very formal. So taking all that into account, it is clear that under these circumstances, with this attitude, France cannot be part of the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And it was not us who cut them from this format, it was them. Because neither Russia nor America, other former Minsk Group co-chairs, never took, officially, I mean, took sides in the post-war period, only France. So that means that the meeting on the 7th of December in Brussels will not take place, and we'll see what alternative we have. Who will be the kind of a mediator or facilitator, or where will be the platform? I also consider this decision of Armenian Prime Minister, because they could have imagined that we will be against it, as an attempt to undermine the peace process. Because peace process will lead to signing of peace agreement where they will have to admit that there's nothing about Karabakh. And in all the press releases, whether adopted in Moscow or in Sochi or in Brussels, there's no reference to Karabakh. That's why probably Armenian side decided to use the old tactics which they used during the occupation to make the process endless without any result-oriented scenario. So if it is their choice, what can we do? We cannot force them to sign. That means that there'll be no peace treaty. That means that there'll be no peace. And if there's no peace, then what do we have? So I think I covered all your questions. Yeah.
Michael Doran, Senior Fellow and Director, Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East, Hudson Institute, United States.
Ask you about relations with the Azerbaijanis of Iran. You recently made some very interesting statements about your concern for the Azerbaijanis, both at home and beyond your borders. You've made some statements here about the power of the Turkish-Azerbaijani relationship. I can see how, as this alliance with Turkey and Azerbaijan develops, it can bring great benefits to Azerbaijanis beyond your borders. It can bring great benefits, I think, to my own country. I'm not sure that the people running the country recognize that. But if you could talk about any of that, how you see that developing, the relationship with the Azerbaijanis beyond your borders developing, I'd be very interested. And secondly, I wonder if I just was struck by your comments just now about the peace process being stalled, but you also said you're negotiating with Russia about the Zengezur corridor. Can you imagine that proceeding, the Zengezur corridor, without the peace agreement with Armenia? And what do the Russians want in return? Thank you.
Thank you. You know, to answer, how to say, comprehensively to your question, I need to go a little bit back. Right after the Second Karabakh War, Azerbaijan and Turkey was advocating for a broad regional cooperation, including connectivity projects, but not only. Therefore, this formula 3+3 was introduced. That means Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, South Caucasus, and Turkey, Iran, and Russia. Despite the fact that post-war situation led to the creation of the Joint Monitoring Center in Agdam, Turkish and Russian Joint Monitoring Center, that meant that actually these two countries of the region will play a role in the future regional configuration. Despite that during the Second Karabakh War and after Second Karabakh War, we didn't see any activity of Iranian representatives. We just said that we need to have an inclusive scenario. Therefore, Iran was invited and Georgia was invited. Georgia has reservations because they said that they cannot participate in the platform where Russia is participating because of situation in the separatist provinces in Georgia. And Iran supported that, and we considered it as a good sign that we will finally come together and we will address important issues, including corridors, because all of us are interested in those corridors. Because if you look now at the map, you'll see that especially taking into account what we were talking about earlier, the need for additional cargoes, we need to have additional routes. When we started to advocate for Zangezur corridor, Russian-Ukrainian war hasn't started yet. And transits through traditional routes from China to Europe was not blocked. Now, situation is different, and the routes through Caspian and also through Zangezur has special importance. So it could be a win-win situation for every country because part of this railroad eventually will enter Iran through city of Julfa, where there is a railroad connection between Iran and Azerbaijani exclave Nakhchivan. And also Armenia will be engaged, so Armenia will eventually have a railroad connection with Iran, which they don't have and will never have, because geography of Armenian-Iranian border and necessity to build tunnels will make this railroad cost maybe minimum $3 to $5 billion US. Who is going to invest in this project? No one. The only way for Armenia to have a railroad connection with Iran is through us. The only way for Armenia to have railroad connection with Russia is through us, because the traditional road through separatist Abkhazia is blocked, and Georgia government is not willing to open it, and it is natural, we understand it. So it is in Armenian interest to have this corridor more than in our interest, because with respect to our connections with Turkey, we use Baku-Tbilisi cars, we use Georgian seaports. With respect to communication with Nakhchivan, we use Iranian territory. So Nakhchivan has a border with Turkey. We can have connection through Georgia, Turkey, Nakhchivan. Therefore, we suggested this 3+3, taking into account what all these advantages. And of course, for us, we will have connection to Nakhchivan by railroad and by highway. But unfortunately, it got stuck because, unfortunately, the recent steps and actions undertaken by some Iranian officials are absolutely counterproductive. And we cannot understand the origin of this dissatisfaction. On one hand, everybody must be satisfied that the long-lasting standoff between Azerbaijan and Armenia came to an end. So this means that there will be regional stability and potentially cooperation. To be unhappy about that, we do not understand what are the geopolitical reasons for that. During the times of occupation, Iranian military forces never held any military training on the border with Azerbaijan, which was occupied. They could have made it. 132 kilometers of Azerbaijani border was under occupation. and this is the border of Azerbaijan and Iran. And why didn't they held military training on that border? Iranian officials, including very, very high-ranking personalities, say that Armenian territorial integrity is a red line for Iran. Why none of them said the same about us? For 30 years, our territory was under occupation. Did anyone hear from Iranian officials that Azerbaijan's territorial integrity is a red line? No. These are the questions which Azerbaijani people ask. It's not only me who asks this question, but every Azerbaijani person who cares about his country asks this question, and we cannot get an answer. Therefore, all what is happening now between Iran and Azerbaijan was not generated by us. We only are responding, and we will respond to any kind of anti-Azerbaijani step, whether it's words or actions. And we had to organize military training on the Iranian border in order to demonstrate that we are not afraid of them. And we tell them that we are not afraid. And we will do everything in order to protect our lifestyle, secular development of Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijanis, including Azerbaijanis in Iran. They are part of our nation. I can give you another example. We have 340 schools in Azerbaijan where there is lessons in Russian language. We have 10 Georgian schools in Azerbaijan. In Georgia, there are 116 Azerbaijani schools, though Azerbaijanis in Georgia, something like 200, 300,000, 116. There are Armenian schools in Iran, but there is no Azerbaijani school in Iran. How that can happen? And if someone says that this is interference into internal affairs, we absolutely reject that. This is not interference in internal affairs. Azerbaijan's foreign policy is very clear. We never interfere into internal affairs of any country. But this is part of society which has the same ethnic origin, speaks the same language, and has the same values with us. How can we be indifferent to that? Why they cannot learn their language at schools? They are losing the language. You know, the problem is why we're raising it. Because Azerbaijani language, which is spoken by Azerbaijanis in Iran, is losing its literature component. It becomes like a language which they speak at home. And this issue must be addressed. And I raise this issue also because this is of concern to us. I hope that pro-Armenian actions of Iranian government will not damage the very fragile peace. And I think there'll be more understanding about the necessity to take into account the feelings of Azerbaijanis and our interests. And one last thing, to illustrate that it was not us who generated this situation. I worked with 3 previous Iranian presidents, with President Khatami, President Ahmadinejad, and President Rouhani. And never, during all these years, we had something similar to what we have now. Never there have been any military training, 2 trainings within several months on our border with words full of hatred and threats to Azerbaijan. Never. So it means that it was not us who is a generator of this situation. We want this situation to end sooner than later. We want peace and friendly relations with all our neighbors. But at the same time, we will always defend our dignity, our independence, and our lifestyle, and we will not allow any foreign player to impose its standards and its will on our government and our people.
Dr. Hakan Yavuz, Professor, University of Utah, United States and Turkey.
Thank you. Mr. President, I would like to congratulate you freeing occupied territories, also ending the shame of Azerbaijan a nation because of this, what happened last 30 years. I was in Shusha. I see the destruction of the major cultural center, and there was nothing constructed at the same time. One wonders what they did last 30 years in those territories. Mr. President, you, as a scholar, you wrote your dissertation in 1985 on peace movement in Great Britain.
Yes.
And in your dissertation, you talk about social basis of anti-war movement in Great Britain. Now, as a scholar of peace movement, not as a president, I would like to ask you, what do you see the major societal level problem for creating a peace mentality in this region? Because you also rightly argue that the peace requires a certain mode of thinking and positioning yourself. And I would like to know, what do you see at the societal level as an obstacle to create a regional level peace? And also, as a scholar, I think Azerbaijan should lead a working group about the textbook of the region. I read some of the textbook in Armenia. They are so negative. I think the roads are important, I agree with you, and transportation, railroads, but we need to also create this mentality as you deal in your own dissertation. And I think Azerbaijan should really call all the regional governments to examine their high school, middle school, and elementary school textbooks and to see how can they change and help to create this mentality of the peace. My second question, I am trying to understand Armenian nationalism. Some of my work deals with the origins of Armenian nationalism in the Ottoman Empire especially. And so I follow Armenian political thinking. I think the Second Karabakh War did not only liberate the occupied territories, it also opened a new space in the Armenian political thinking inside the country. Scholars by Richard Liberidian and others, they seek to question what kind of state do we need? Do we need a state which guided and shaped by the past, so-called past injustices, or a state that cares its own national interest? And now I try to examine some of the Pashinyan's position, and as a scholar on Armenian nationalism, the Pashinyan is so difficult to make sense from my own perspective. Since you met with him so many times, I want to know what does Pashinyan want? Why he changes 7 times a day? Is it because of Russia, France, or Iran? Or Pashinyan himself is actually manipulating these powers, not the regional powers manipulating him, but he himself manipulating these powers. What is your take on this issue? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll try to address all your questions. First of all, thank you for visiting Shusha and liberated territories, so you've seen everything with your own eyes. And everybody who visited Shusha, especially right after the war, because now Shusha is changing, we are rebuilding it and restoring. A huge restoration works are taking place. But when I visited Shusha right after the war, apart from all other feelings which each of us feels approaching Shusha, feelings of pride, dignity, at the same time sorrow that we were not able to be there for so many years. One feeling shocked me was, if they thought it is their city, why it is in such a bad shape? Because one cannot treat its own city like that. There was not a single building restored or not a single building built. Only 2 villas, which are just sitting on the Lachin Road, overseeing. 2 villas of so-called de facto Karabakh leaders, which built for them with swimming pools, with a barbecue, and everybody who visits these 2 villas once again sees the level of hypocrisy and kleptocracy of so-called Karabakh officials. Because not only Shusha, I visited many times the villages where Armenians were settled illegally during the times of occupation. And I was absolutely shocked what I've seen. You will never find in any part of Azerbaijan, devastation like that. It's a total poverty, as if you come back to the 60s or 70s of the previous century. And my question was, and where are all these millions and billions of dollars which Armenians collected every year? Every year they held these marathons, telemarathons, to collect money from Armenians in America, in France, in other parts of the world. Every marathon they collected some 50 or 100 million US dollars. Where are this money? Where are the money of so-called Armenian philanthropists who presented themselves as donators? Everybody who visits Shusha sees that this is an ancient Azerbaijani city, and now it belongs to our people whom it should belong. With respect to my dissertation, thank you for paying attention to that. You're absolutely right. It was, the theme was anti-war movement in Great Britain and position of political parties. But that was a dissertation written in different country. That was Soviet Union. It was 1985. And of course, it was full of ideological stereotypes of Communist Party of the Soviet Union. I can tell you one other thing. As a student of Moscow State University for International Relations, I was sent to London for diplomatic practice in Soviet embassy, and it was 1981, and that was a time when this anti-war movement was gaining strength. There were huge rallies, and there was a very prominent personalities, including priests. One of them was the head of the NGO, which was called Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND. And really it was a serious political force. It was backed by then Labour Party and its famous leader Michael Foot, who was a frequent guest to Soviet embassy in London. I can witness it as a witness. So anti-war movement in UK at that time, though it has a very, very, very good agenda, world without nuclear weapons, was kind of to a certain degree associated with Soviet connections and Soviet propaganda. I'm not sorry for what I wrote. I was also a member of Communist Party at that time. And I tried to be maximum objective. I don't know to what degree I managed. And sorry for bothering you with these details. But you asked also a very, very important question. And this is a question probably which doesn't have, or questions which do not have answer. First, peace mentality in the region. Armenian society was poisoned for decades. they were poisoned by propaganda of diaspora and Armenian nationalists. And one of the reasons why they committed these brutal acts against Azerbaijanis, why they destroyed our cities, for instance, Agdam, Shusha, Fizuli, others, is brainwashed by nationalists and diaspora, because we did not do anything harmful to them. We just, even if we wanted, we had no time. Agdam was occupied in the beginning of the 90s, so why so much hatred? Why digging out the graves? Why destroying the mosques? And the answer is that their education is poisonous. They raise their children in the atmosphere of hatred towards Turkey and Azerbaijan. So Turkophobia, Azerbaijanophobia is their ideology. And also, they invented so many legends about their history, about their historical personalities, that started to believe in these fairy tales. All their history, all their historical main products are fake, because they take the history of other nations and present it as their own history. And I think this ideology led them to disaster, because at a certain moment, they really started to think that they're the bravest soldiers, the greatest nation, the cradle of civilization, and the center of the world. This, how to say, damaged reality played a bad joke with them. So the results of the war was a kind of a cold shower for them. They did not expect it to happen. They did not expect them to be so humiliated by this defeat. And they themselves admitted that there have been more than 10,000 desertees who ran away during the war. And what is happening now, I hope, could be a remedy, because they need treatment. Their society needs psychological assistance. I'm not trying to insult. I'm absolutely trying to just to say what I feel and what I see during this post-war period. And those voices which now we hear about peace, about, how to say, normalization with Azerbaijan, we haven't heard these voices during the times of occupation. During the times of occupation, then previous president of Armenia, a war criminal, Sergej Sarkisyan, at one of the meetings with some young group, he was asked about historical territories of Armenia, so-called historical territories. And he said, we liberated Karabakh and you will liberate that part of Turkey. You see how one should be inadequate, I try to find the word, to have territorial claims to Turkey, which is the second army of the world, which country which has independent foreign policy, and everybody in the world have to take it into account. Even Sweden and Finland have to take into account Turkish legitimate demands with respect to putting end to sheltering terrorists. And this small, impoverished, dependent Russian satellite, or even Russian slave, tells that one day they will occupy Turkish territory. So this is poisonous conscience. And the war for them is a chance to get rid of that. Chance to get rid of their manipulation with international public opinion, to invent stories about the great history and great nation. With respect to Pashinyan, my comments probably will be inappropriate, but just some piece of information, very objective, and as some say, no comments. During the times of occupation, I had several meetings with Mr. Pashinyan. I already told once about our first meeting in September 2018 in Dushanbe at the summit of CIS countries. By the way, it was the 27th of September. 2 years after exactly, the Second Karabakh War started. And after that meeting, I don't want to go into much details, after that meeting we agreed that we will strengthen the ceasefire regime on the border. We will stop, shootings, and it happened. It happened for 1 year. It was the quietest period when there were no casualties, almost. But what happened after? He probably thought that it's a sign of weakness, and then these famous statements came that Karabakh is Armenia, and new war for new territories, and then provocations, July, August, etc. So what he says now is different from what he said at that time. So, and always I ask, did they really need this war to understand who is who? I was trying to explain, I was trying to say that we will never tolerate this situation. The patience is coming to an end. We will destroy you. This is my quote. If the war starts, we will destroy you. And it was not sign of kind of a bravery or propaganda. This was the reality. We knew what we can do, and we knew what they can do. And even if they had a military support, I mean physical military support from other countries, that wouldn't have stopped us. And we were motivated, and we were ready to die rather than to continue like that. But now we see change of rhetorics. Now they want to normalize relations with Turkey, and we say we support it. We do not object. On the contrary, we want these two tracks to go in parallel. Turkish-Armenian normalization, Azerbaijan-Armenian normalization. Now they talk about peace, etc. I don't know to what degree it is sincere, and whether they will need another cold shower to be treated completely and to get rid of this poisonous brainwashing or not. But they need to change the full paradigm of their education. They need to change their ideological grounds. It's painful, but they have to do it. Otherwise, they will be completely lost. And they understood, especially after yesterday's summit of Common Defense Treaty Organization members, when Mr. Pashinyan made a very undiplomatic and I would say harmful for himself démarche against his colleagues. He understands that if we want, we can do a lot, and no one can stop it. The thing is that we don't want. We want peace. We want them understand that they have nothing to do and nothing to say with Karabakh Armenians. We want the Zangezur corridor, and we want border delimitation based on historical maps. Historical maps are not the maps which they try to introduce. It's not much. We don't want their territory. We don't want any war. If we want it, we would have done it. And no one can stop it, us. Neither his sponsors in Western Europe, nor to the south of their border, nor to the east of their border.
Kurt Debov, Senior Associate Researcher, the Institute for European Studies of Brussels University, Belgium.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your time and your frankness. We met for the first time 16 years ago during a lunch in the Belgian Parliament, after you met with the Belgian Prime Minister. And back then, we were all fascinated by you explaining the psychology of the Kremlin. And everything you predicted that would happen in the years after was actually coming through. So I would like to ask you again now, I know it's a big question, but what is going to happen in this conflict now with Ukraine and your vision? I mean, what is the psychology of the Kremlin in the next coming months and perhaps years? Thank you.
Well, I think nobody knows what will happen. We are not actually directly involved. Our information is mainly from the open sources. But as far as we see international development with respect to this war, it is absolutely unpredictable. And the most important question is, I think, when it ends and how it ends. And a lot in the world will depend on that. Therefore, for me, it will be very, how to say, irresponsible to comment about how it will continue. It depends on a variety of factors. It depends on policy of Russian government, policy of Ukrainian government, and Western alliance, which is backing Ukrainian army. So there must be understanding that the war must come to an end. I think this is number one. And of course, Azerbaijan always, in all the international fora, spoke for territorial integrity of all the countries, and we remain on this position. We suffered ourselves from violation of territorial integrity. Therefore, territorial integrity is fundamental principle of international law. Other thing is that there is also a selective approach to territorial integrity of different countries. I can tell you that during the times of occupation, we always were, to a certain degree, disappointed, to put it mildly, that the conflicts in the post-Soviet area are treated differently. With respect to the conflict in Georgia and Moldova, even before Ukraine, there was an absolutely clear articulation of support of territorial integrity of these countries. In case of Azerbaijan, never we heard from mediators this straightforward approach or statement. The narrative was, you have to agree. That was a public narrative. And the messages which sometimes we received during the private negotiations was that this is a reality, and every country should take into account the reality. And when we were asking what about UN Security Council resolutions, no answer. What about territorial integrity? No answer. Helsinki Final Act? No answer. And we said, okay, this is a reality, so we will change this reality. And we started to prepare ourselves to change the reality. And that's how it happened. It was not international law. It was not United Nations. It was not Armenian constructive approach which changed the situation. It was our army, our people, and our political will. So realities must be changed. Do you have power to do it? If yes, you do it. If not, you accumulate power. If you, how to say, want to have a quiet life, you agree with this reality. Our choice was different. I was asked about sleepless nights. Yes, I had many of them during the times of occupation because of feeling of anger, not because of feeling of something will happen, feeling of anger and feeling sometimes of understanding that this injustice is how the world is being regulated. And my belief in justice only happened after we won the war. I started to believe in justice again. Therefore, once again, what will be the end, I don't know. What we have done, it is clear. How we were approaching the situation of restoration of territorial integrity also is known. So you have to be strong. Unfortunately, this is the outcome of 21st century international relations and forget about resolutions, statements, and good words. They worth nothing. You, your people, your army, and your feeling of justice.
Brenda Schaffer, professor, United States Naval Postgraduate School, United States.
Thank you for hosting us. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you for sharing your time with us. I have two questions, if possible. Azerbaijan, for 30 years of its strategic projects, it sees demand, it sees needs ahead of time strategically, often more than international oil companies, foreign governments. If I take, for example, the Southern Gas Corridor, Azerbaijan identified that Europe is going to have increased natural gas demand, even when European institutions thought their needs would be modest, when companies, I remember during the FID of the project, this was termed the last mega gas project, and everything was going to be on LNG and renewables, and Azerbaijan understood, built scalable, built double capacity, and already within 2 years of operation, that demand is already in place from Europe. Another infrastructure project that I had the honor to visit this week was in Zengilan. So seeing, if someone looks today, you see who needs an airport here? Why here in this corner are these beautiful homes being built in this modern city? Of course, for justice, as you mentioned, refugees going back. We always hear about conflicts, about the suffering of refugees or the injustice, but we never see I don't recall a situation where the refugees actually got to go home, and it was very exciting to see this. But I believe there must be some vision here that's similar to the Southern Gas Corridor, similar to the BTC, that sees ahead. Where do you see the greater region around Zengilan in 10 years? Who will be using that airport? Will it be the cities of northern Iran when they're more open? Will it be eastern Turkey? How do you see that region developing? And then a second question, we're seeing tremendous significant developments in Muslim majority countries. We can say everything from Abraham Accords, which shifted all the cooperation lines, transportation lines in the Middle East. The very clear, if Iran was a symbol of standing up for Muslims, it's very clear after 30 years of occupation, and as you said, not one peeps about the problem of occupation, and in fact, even having economic projects like the Hudafarin hydropower plant, Gizgalasib hydropower plant, in the occupied territories, even restoring or building parts of mosques in Shusha. Obviously, Iran doesn't speak for Islamic solidarity anymore. We see the shift of Turkey being involved in the building of militaries in many Muslim majority countries. Saudi Arabia's main cooperation in oil is with Russia, not with other OPEC producers. And Iran, basically calling itself the name of Shia, but how could a truly religious government shoot women in the head, treat women the way they're treated? Are we seeing a new model, especially among Shia Muslims, developing where no longer looking to Qom, maybe looking to Najaf, looking to other places, or maybe a completely different model, which is actually like, for instance, the model of Azerbaijan, where it's a very secular government, secular state institutions, but a religious believing people, which is actually more connected to traditional Islam, where religious leaders were not governors, but were separate from the state institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You touched upon a very important issues. I just, answering these questions, want to say that our strong belief and what we are doing here with respect to development of the country, and also giving messages to the society that religion must be separated from the state. We are all Muslims in Azerbaijan. There are also Christians, Jews, and representatives of other religions. But religion should not interfere into political life. We do not understand when somebody talks about political Islam. This is not something which is common in Azerbaijan, and one of our advantages as independent country in this geography, I think, is, and one of our achievements is that we managed to strengthen the secular character of our society, at the same time with full respect to religious feelings of all our citizens. And what we are doing now, for instance, Karabakh, apart from airports, which you mentioned, is restoration of mosques, including the mosque in Shusha, which was illegally, quote, restored but damaged by one Iranian company. And that was a big scandal because even we invited then Iranian ambassador to our foreign minister, saying that you have no right to do it. You have no right to touch it. You have no right, first of all, to visit Shusha, which is part of Azerbaijan, without our agreement. And that was, again, the sign of solidarity with Armenians, who destroyed 65 mosques in Karabakh and Zengezur out of 67, and one in Agdam, which you will see. They used it as a stable for cows and pigs, and also minarets they used as observation point to see Azerbaijani troops. And the mosque in Shusha was so-called renovated to demonstrate the so-called tolerance of Armenians who look, they renovate, and they called it the Persian mosque. First, the mosque doesn't have nationality. You cannot call Persian or, I don't know, any other. This is part of our history, and none of us forgot that. Therefore, as I said, separation and total, how to say, separation of religion from political life. This is our model, and this model proves to be successful. So we don't have in Azerbaijan all what you've described in your question. We have full unity among Muslims in Azerbaijan, regardless which part of Muslim religion they belong to, Shia or Sunni. We have unique experience of having a unity prayer in our mosque, where Shia and Sunni Muslim pray together. And how can we separate if all of them are Azerbaijanis? The same blood, the same ethnicity. And this is probably the last question which is asked in Azerbaijan. You know our country very well. And we are all Muslims, and there is no division between us. And those who want to divide the Muslim world, they do a big damage to all Muslims. Muslim world must be united. And what we are doing, we are contributing to that by our efforts, by our initiatives, by our statements, and our policy. Therefore, I think in today's world, the traditional alliances, they can grow bigger. And for instance, we already discussed the Turkish-Azerbaijani cooperation format. One of the advantages of Turkish-Azerbaijani cooperation format is that we create a synergy, and the countries which, for instance, Azerbaijan has better relations, or Turkey has better relations, Turkey has better relations. I'm not yet used to that. These countries also create additional potential. You know that Azerbaijan played a role in normalization of relations between Turkey and Israel. We also played a role in normalization of relations between Turkey and some Arab countries. We consider this as part of our duty, because if we have these connections, we want our friends to be friends between themselves. And this really creates additional opportunity to strengthen security, stability, and to have more economic benefits. And I think now what we see is a configuration of political cooperation formats in the broader region of Eurasia. It goes in positive direction. With respect to our reconstruction processes, of course, first of all, what we do for those people who will come to live there. And Zengilan Airport has importance because it will be easier to transport cargos, and one day probably Zengilan Airport will have international flight connections. Why not? It's one of the most beautiful parts of Azerbaijan, a very beautiful nature and natural springs and rivers and trees. It's a piece of heaven. And we will create all the necessary infrastructure for that. At the same time, it is not far from Armenian border. Therefore, it is not a secret that this airport will also be important from point of view of security. And also taking into account the growing number of cargo going through Azerbaijan and the growing cargo fleet of Azerbaijan, I think it could be one of the destinations for our cargo fleet. Because of the location, it is closer to Europe, it is closer to South, and Zengilan in general will be an important transportation center which sits on the Zengezur transportation corridor. The railroad to Zengilan already is built, probably you've seen it. And next year it will come to almost will come to Armenian border. Airport in Fizuli is now actively used, and many visitors, international visitors also use it. And airport in Lachin has, of course, special importance because it's not easy access to Lachin. You can get it either through, either through Kelbecer Mountains, which is sometimes inaccessible in summer, or through Gubadli, so it really has importance mainly for those people who will live there. Whether this will have impact on a future additional, benefits for the region, of course, yes, of course. Because when we started to invest in Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railroad, also there were questions why we spend so much money, almost $800 million US, if we have other connections. But now we see the situation has changed. There is a need to expand it up to 5 million tons, and we are already doing it. By the end of next year, it must be ready. The same will be with Karabakh, because it will be a driving force for development of Azerbaijan. It will accumulate a lot of labor resources, and that will help us to keep unemployment at a low level. And of course, Zengilan Agali village is an illustration of the will of Azerbaijani people. Many thought that no one will come back. But you see 70 children at school, and the young generation representatives who were raised in Baku or Sumgait, they moved. They moved from capital, city, to a village to live on their own land. And this shows that the will of Azerbaijani people cannot be damaged by neither occupation nor any other, threats. And I'm sure absolute majority of former refugees will go back. And the process has started.
Mr. President, you're already spending 2 intense hours with us, and we still have 4 more questions.
Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Venslav Sabev, Vice President, Geneva Geostrategic Observatory, Switzerland.
Thank you. Thank you for this question. It comes very rightly after Brenda's question on the model of intercultural and interethnic solidarity in Azerbaijan, including now in the liberated territories. Speaking on the public perception, and Geneva is a relevant place as a world hub of governance and human rights negotiations, how to portray this image of tolerance and intercultural solidarity. If we have the opportunity to portray in the center of international Geneva one image, one object, one feature which symbolizes this solidarity in Karabakh, in relation to the open hand it has to the neighbors and to the world. What would that object be, or that image, or that symbol? You mentioned that it's a piece of heaven. It would be great to bring a piece of heaven in Place des Nations in Geneva. Challenging, but great prospect. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the advantages of Azerbaijani society is that it is multicultural and multi-ethnic. It has always been like that. And why? Probably the main answer is because every person, regardless its religious or ethnic roots, feel comfortably here in Azerbaijan. And I think this is really one of our advantages, and especially during the years of independence, which were not easy, especially in the first years of independence, with war, occupation, and million refugees. Our nation and our people, they preserved the character of which is common to our people. So this situation did not make us more angry or more aggressive, and this is very important. And also that was important for consolidation of our society. And the events which we organized in Azerbaijan, I mean international events like humanitarian forums or intercultural dialogue forum, which we held every second year. And by the way, we are restoring after pandemic. Next May, we'll have again international intercultural dialogue forum. I invite our guests, if you have time, to be present there, because it really demonstrates to the world the spirit of tolerance, intercultural dialogue, and mutual understanding. Also, in 2008, we initiated a process which then was called Baku process, when for the first time in the history we gathered together ministers of culture of member states of Council of Europe and member states of Islamic Cooperation Organization, more than 100 countries for the first time. And now United Nations strongly supports Baku process, so it's one of the most important platforms for intercultural dialogue. I can name a lot of events which reflect what I'm saying, including the visit of His Holiness Pope Francis to Azerbaijan. That was one of the first Muslim countries which he visited, and he had his religious service in Catholic Church, and then he went to the mosque to see the religious leaders of Azerbaijan. All this is actually also strengthening the spirit of solidarity inside Azerbaijan. And during the Second Karabakh War, we had almost 3,000 martyrs, shaheeds, and among them representatives of all the ethnic groups which inhabit Azerbaijan. So it was a fight for land, for dignity, regardless who belongs to which ethnic group. We were united like one iron fist. So I think if in one word to present what has been done, I think in one event, I think I can think about Hari Bülbül musical festival, which was held in Shusha already twice since liberation, and first was May last year. This was a traditional festival which we restored, and at that festival last year there was performers representing different ethnic groups of Azerbaijan. So that was symbolic. That was, frankly speaking, my idea. I wanted all Azerbaijani nationalities, ethnic groups to be there on Jidir Düzü, on that place which is sacred to every Azerbaijani, and to demonstrate that it is our common victory. And each of Azerbaijani citizens is proud of that. So there can be many other elements, but you asked, I just thought that probably that would be the best presentation.
Perinci, Senior Researcher, Foundation for Political, Economic and Social Research, Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, the questions I am planning to ask were already asked, but I want to just learn, since I also visited Shusha and I saw all the damages Armenia made in those occupied territories, and also I visited Gence last year, and I saw the missiles strike and destroyed civilian buildings, including the occupation era and the war era. There were several war crimes, crimes against humanity, and damage to cultural properties, etc. Do you have any plans to proceed any trials or ask for compensation from Armenia in the peace process? Thank you.
Yes, we have started this process. We already hired international legal firms in order to assist us with that. With respect to the war crimes, which are obvious, and before the Second Karabakh War and during the Second Karabakh War, when Armenians were shelling peaceful cities, including Gence and more than 10 Azerbaijani cities, which were situated far away from the area of the conflict, with ballistic missiles. Scud, Elbrus, they even used Iskander M, which by no means they could have, because this is only the missile which is used by Russian military forces. There is a missile which is called Iskander E, export. This is for export, but the missile we found in Shusha, which is now demonstrated in Trophy Park in Baku, is Iskander M. So there's a brutal violation of international law. It's a war crime. We started the legal procedures. There have been other illegal activity, like illegal settlements. This is also considered to be a war crime based on Geneva Conventions, because change of a historical legacy of the areas, and of course illegal excavation of natural resources. There have been several European companies who were involved in that, especially in the production of gold in Zengilan, and not only in Zengilan, also in other parts, and not only gold. So all that already is in the process. You know, it's not a quick process, it's a slow process. We do everything properly in order to achieve success. Of course, if the decision of international legal institutions is not politicized, and if they are free from any kind of pressure from some Armenian European sponsors, if they objectively treat it, of course, there is a big chance that we will win the case. Also, all the destroyed cities and villages have been already monitored by our officials. We prepare the passports for every building, and what Armenians have done, it's seen now. So everything is documented, and that will be used by us with respect to legal procedure. So how long it will last, we do not know. We do it mostly, how to say, without any kind of public presentation, but it's a routine work which is being done, and I'm sure that if again justice prevails, we will punish aggressors for what they've done during the times of occupation.
Ekaterina Metravelli, Georgian Foundation for Strategic and International Studies, Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your time and sharing your vision with us. As a Georgian, first of all, I would like to thank you for your recent visit to Georgia. We in Expert Society greatly appreciate the cooperation between Armenia, Azerbaijan and Georgia. We consider us as a natural allies, and the foundation for that was laid by late presidents of Azerbaijan and Georgia. Thus, we look forward for pushing forward this cooperation. I would also like to thank you and Azerbaijan for understanding Georgia's reservation regarding 3+3 due to occupation of our territories, but with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Iran behaving strangely, that 3+3 format does not have, even without Georgia's creating problem in the future. But I want to concentrate now your attention about this very important initiative which you've pushed forward or aired in Prague during the European political community meeting about this necessity to discuss the cooperation and platform between Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia to ensuring peace and security in the region. I understand that with the recent developments, as you've mentioned, regarding Armenia's reservation to be part of the peace process on the 7th of December, that might be on a hold. But still, I would be interested to hear about your position, what you envision under that cooperation format. Thank you.
Thank you. Our relations with Georgia have a strategic importance for us and for our Georgian friends, and my visit to Georgia was also a demonstration of our relations and necessity to be together in all the situations. So solidarity, mutual support, of course, energy transportation projects, and some new ideas which I discussed with my colleague, Georgian Prime Minister, taking into account the new opportunities for energy and transportation connectivity projects, have very good results. So we are working very actively now, not maybe very public, but very actively in order to be prepared for new volumes of hydrocarbons and cargos. At the same time, as you correctly mentioned, Azerbaijan also was supporting the idea to establish, if not cooperation, but at least a format of consultations between three South Caucasian countries. And we think it's natural because we're situated in the same region. Georgia for us is a strategic partner. At the same time, Georgia and Armenian relations also are good. Therefore, we thought it was natural, but unfortunately, Armenian side was very resistant to that. We could not understand what is the reason, but we can guess that probably they do not want to disappoint some of their sponsors. But anyway, we managed to open a small window when Armenia had to agree that the foreign ministers meeting between Azerbaijan and Armenia will take place in Georgia. Again, their strange behavior, I think, was absolutely difficult to understand by us and by Georgian hosts. Then where they were only saying that it should be only bilateral, that Georgian representatives should not participate. We cannot understand it. And I discussed during my visit to Georgia with Prime Minister Garibashvili the prospects for having a trilateral summit in Georgia, and if Armenia is ready, we think it will be timely. Because first, if they really want peace, that's the question, because without that, everything doesn't have any sense. If they really want peace, they should not avoid this format, because connectivity, transportation, energy security, trade, all that can be achieved. And I think one of the negative consequences of Armenian occupation, apart from what happened to our lands, is that Southern Caucasus lost this opportunity to be integrated. And now it's time. Maybe it's premature to talk about integration or even trilateral cooperation, but at least to start consultations. I think time has come. I don't know what are the obstacles in front of Armenia, whom they're afraid of not agreeing to that, but I think that if they really want peace, they must behave in a more independent manner. If that happens, that meeting can take place very soon. If not, then okay, it will continue like it is. Actually, for Azerbaijan and Georgia, cooperation, taking into account geography, Black Sea, Caspian Sea connection, Central Asia, Europe connection, we can do well without them, without Armenians. If they want to benefit, we are ready. If not, then it will continue like that.
Laszlo Vasa, Senior Research Fellow, Institute for Foreign Affairs and Trade, Hungary.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for getting the opportunity to be here. My question is focusing on the organization of Turkish countries, of Turkish states. How do you see the role of this organization in regards of the economic cooperation along the Middle Corridor? Thank you.
Yes, we are glad that already for many years Hungary is an observer, and Prime Minister Orban regularly participates at the summit. Organization has changed the name and of course becomes more and more active on international arena, and we are glad that between the member states now we see much more active dialogue, much more than several years ago. And the last summit also clearly reflects that. With respect to connectivity, I think this will be one of the main contributors. I mean, cooperation between Turkish states will be one of the main contributors to the Middle Corridor, because if you look at the geography, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and through Caspian, Azerbaijan, and then Georgia, Turkey, this creates additional opportunities. And as we discussed earlier today, we already enjoy the growth of transit cargoes. As I said, 70% this year. Next year maybe will be even higher. And all are these cargoes mainly coming from Central Asia to Europe through Trans-Caspian route. And also during my visits to Central Asian countries and visits of President of Turkey and leaders of Turkish states visiting Turkey, there are new opportunities to increase level of bilateral trade. With Turkey now we are working actively to expand the list of items which are free of any custom duties. In other way, some step-by-step steps towards a free trade agreement. And the trade turnover between Azerbaijan and Turkey is already, I think, more than $4 billion US, and the same we see with other countries. So this will be the main contributor to the corridor. At the same time, it's important that other big players also consider this route as reliable, safe, and economically attractive. Therefore, we need, and we have stability, reliability, and we need to work broadly on tariff policy to unify the tariff policy, to coordinate activity of customs administration, so that companies which think where to send their cargoes will use this corridor not only to save time, but also to save money. And for that, we need unified tariff policy and customs administration to be predictable and fair. So potential is here, and we are moving in the right direction.
Mr. President, our last question goes to Mr. Luca Miraglia, European House, Ambrazotti, Middle East and Central Asia, Italy.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the kind invitation to this conference, and congratulations to ADA University for the excellent organization. At the beginning of September, you honored with your presence at our economic forum in Cernobbio. And that time, your intervention focused on bilateral cooperation. You cover education, because every country needs to develop capabilities, competencies to grow. And it's interesting and nice to sit in our university today. Then, of course, you cover bilateral cooperation on energy. And we did appreciate the effort Azerbaijan did to increase the gas supply in a very critical moment. Even though going forward, if it is very likely that we're going to be in a new geopolitical order, this is making Azerbaijan's role more and more important and more strategic. It's going to be, of course, about energy, and it's going to be about that middle corridor that is in the title of today's conference. And I would be personally glad to have a chance to enlarge this kind of conversation, even bringing it to Italy and trying to understand in a bilateral, maybe in a multilateral dimension, what we can do to speed it up, to help the development. And well, Italy and Azerbaijan are very important partners. We're now enjoying a new government. I mean, we got used to that. And we found our way of, continuity through discontinuity. But where do you see, which do you think are the main objective in the ongoing relation with Italy? And if I may, where do you see are the bottlenecks? Because the Trans-Adriatic pipeline was eventually done, but it wasn't easy. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for hospitality in Chernobyl. I really enjoyed my stay in this beautiful part of your country, beautiful part of the world, and also thank you for invitation to be able to address this distinguished audience. It was a good opportunity to talk about bilateral and also some issues related to our international agenda. And I considered it as another sign of close partnership relations between Italy and Azerbaijan. Italy is one of the 9 EU member states with which Azerbaijan have signed strategic partnership declarations. So we are strategic partners, and really we are increasing and broadening our bilateral agenda. During my last visit to Italy, which started from Rome, I participated in the newly built or renovated new building of Azerbaijani embassy and also cultural center. And then we had Rector Hafiz Pashayev and 5 leaders of Italian universities have exchanged documents on creation of Italian Azerbaijani University, which will be situated somewhere in this environment, and the construction have already started, as far as I know, and we have a budget for the next year. It is not yet fully approved, but I can give you some information, open some secret, that in our investment program, the financing of the new building of Italian Azerbaijani University is provided. It will be very important for our bilateral relations, for education, as you mentioned, because 5 leading Italian universities become co-founders of Azerbaijan Italian University. Our foreign minister made a phone call to Foreign Minister of Italy, congratulating him on this occasion, and we're looking forward to establish close ties with members of government, and I think that we will continue our successful cooperation. With respect to the energy supplies, we are doing everything in order to increase the supply of natural gas. You mentioned that there have been certain difficulties with construction of TAP. We all know that. We also know that these obstacles were artificial. We dealt with these obstacles very seriously, and I think that now everybody understands that first, olive trees did not suffer, they were replanted. And second, now the energy security in Italy is provided better. And there is a demand to increase the volume of natural gas from Azerbaijan to Italy, but of course for that we need to expand the capacity of TAP. And I discussed it with the previous Prime Minister, Mr. Mario Draghi, and due to the fact that Azerbaijan has only 20% share in TAP, we cannot be the only contributor. We need to make this decision, and I think the sooner we make it, the better, because TAP works full capacity, and with new volumes of gas, we'll need to do it quickly. Because, of course, yes, Trans-Balkan also, but it also has certain limitations. After the Russian-Ukrainian war started, we got a request from more than 10 countries of Europe with respect to either increasing the supply of existing supply or starting the supply. And we are evaluating all these proposals. At the moment, we do not have enough gas to satisfy all the requests. Therefore, we need to start, I think, immediately the commercial negotiations, and primarily with the countries which already are recipients of Azerbaijani gas, because the lines are already here and all the legal framework exists. But at the same time, we plan to expand the geography. We fully support the initiatives in Europe to build interconnectors. One of them was inaugurated last month. I participated in Sofia, Greek-Bulgarian interconnector. Another interconnector between Bulgaria and Serbia will be ready by the end of next year. I was informed about that 2 days ago during my visit to Serbia. We are working now with the government of Albania to invest in the gas distribution network in Albania, because it do not exist. And Albania is only a transitor, but they also need the gas for domestic consumption. There is a project of Ionic Adriatic gas pipeline, which covers 3 Balkan countries. But for that, we need, all of us who want this project to be implemented, needs that EU steps in and expresses its attitude to that. So all these interconnectors which are now being built, of course, have the one goal to provide energy security. Our resources are known. I many times articulated the numbers, so we are committed to increase investments. As I said before, as soon as we complete our new transit arrangements with Turkey, we will know then what is the legal framework and how much gas we can supply. Before this is achieved, it is not possible to do it. I hope that by the end of the year, we will finalize it. And this will be, of course, part of overall our energy strategy. In the Memorandum of Understanding, which was signed between Madam Ursula von der Leyen and myself this July in Baku, we addressed not only gas, but also electricity, hydrogen, green hydrogen included. And there are big plans in order to increase the volume of electric energy which we can supply to Europe. With respect to bottleneck, with gas it is of course TAP, and with electricity it's gas transmissions infrastructure in Turkey. Because today it can transport limited volume of Azerbaijani electric energy, but our electric energy is needed in Balkans, in Serbia, we discussed it 2 days ago, in Bulgaria, in Romania, and maybe in many other European countries. Therefore, we can achieve it only when we continue the teamwork, and of course investments will be needed. So we are planning to become an important exporter of electric energy to Europe, and the market is very attractive for us, and electric energy is needed. So coming back to our bilateral relations with Italy, I would call them probably excellent. Excellent, and we are very committed to that, and we'll do everything in order to continue with the new government this strategic path.
Mr. President, it was our last question, and on behalf of our group, I would like to extend our utmost and profound appreciation for the time you have spent to us, and it was more than 2.5 hours. And Mr. President, you also in a very comprehensive and detailed manner addressed more than 16 questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for being with us, and wish you all the best.
Mr. President, if you allow me, of course I thank you very much for being with us, and I remember your speech in Italy when everybody was expecting that you will say, at least in initial part of your speech, about energy, about how pipeline will go, but you spoke about education. And this is for us a great sign of your support of education in country. And from very beginning of installation of this beautiful university, you, of course, was always provided us great support. And initial by my greeting speech here, remarks here, I wanted to start with thanking you for support of ADA University, but thanks to Italian representatives that he gave me this opportunity once again to remind you that in your official visit to Italy, among all other important issues, you raised this issue of creation of Italian-Azerbaijan University. Now, once again, thanks to Italian representative, with his question, now you have answered to my many questions that will you...
With respect to the budget, everything will be okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, for being with us. It's excellent. I want to thank you also, all the participants, for coming to ADA University, and I hope that we will meet another time very soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again.
And everybody will go downstairs for family photo. Please come downstairs.
Done by the students, Thank you. The book with my visit,
We will have a picture.
Thank you again. Or we can organize something in Italy. It would be nice. The middle corridor. I think it's perfectly fine.
Thank you for embassy.
Hope you enjoyed your trip.
Definitely, it was fantastic. Hudafarin was great. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Nice and easy. Very wonderful.